Okay, greetings everybody. Thank you very much for coming along. This is Autism in the BME community, organised by the National Association of Black Supplementary Schools, which is the organiser of the National Black Supplementary Schools Week, which is the 4th of its kind and the only of its kind in the whole world, quite frankly. To be honest, there's no other organisation doing what NABS is, which is bringing together all the black supplementary schools around the UK under one umbrella. And the idea of that is to make sure that parents can actually find what they're looking for. When they want a bit of extra help for their children, they can come to one resource and find a local supplementary school in their local locality to help their children with extra education. And it's not just for children who are underachieving, because as far from the research I've done and some of the work looked at by BTEC, this is not the case with a lot of our children. The figures are kind of back to front when you look at it in a different way. But for the children that do need help, the Black Supplementary School system is there to help. It's also there to help children who are overachieving, the children that are being stuck at that ceiling and sent back down to help other children. They're not allowed to progress. The Black Supplementary School system will help those children keep at that high level, so they can go through that ceiling and carry on learning. Because some schools, or most schools, have an issue with letting children go up a year. If they're exceptionally talented, they have the full legal right to go up a year. And many schools don't like doing that. So the Black Supplementary School system will keep those high-achieving children at a high level. This Black Supplementary Schools Week is a week to bring in all the different organisations in the UK who are doing progressive stuff. Not the well-known and highly financed organisations, but the grassroots organisations that are doing the hardcore stuff on the ground that nobody wants to give much publicity to. I will bring those people in during the week and we will tackle the things that are not popular. NAMS, we don't do the gang violence thing and all that kind of thing because it's highly financed, but I want to tackle the things that are not popular but are necessary in our community. The theme this week is business and science. I throw in a bit of mental health issues as well, just to bring people in. But we're dealing with business and science this week because this is what our community needs, this is what our children need to progress in our community. So with no further ado, I'll let Vanessa, Bob come along. Oh, sorry, health and safety. We're at toilets. Just come out this door, turn right and take the first left. Ladies on the right, men on the left. And for a change, the men and ladies' toilets are on the same level. Because usually the men's toilets are like way down there, around the corner, outside and take the bus. We've got the men and women's toilets next to each other for a change. Okay, there's no fire precautions scheduled for today, so if there is a fire precaution today, run like hell.
Which direction?
Which direction?
Okay, just follow me, because I'll be the fastest, trust.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, oh, I'll be chasing you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me introduce Vanessa and Bob from a second voice organisation. She's been going through just over a year now, and she's doing some serious work in her community, and I'm bringing her out, wherever I am, I'm dragging her out with me, because what she's doing needs to be seen around the country. And she don't want to come out of her own little area, but it's just too bad, because you got NABS on your case. So welcome, Vanessa.
Hello everybody. First of all, I want to ask everybody who's got experience of autism or raised the except maybe everybody. So everybody knows everything about what autism is? No? Wow, okay. What I've done, there was some information that was going to be given to you so you could read beforehand, so I won't have to go through it because it's more about trying to get to the core of the problem instead of us dealing with what autism is. But what I'll explain is that autism is basically a neurological complex condition. It's not a mental illness, it's not a disease, you can't catch it. It's basically how to do with social interaction. So that could affect what they call the triad of impairment, which is social language, social communication, social imagination. So what I'll do is, I think while I'm talking, which I'm going to do very briefly because I want to try to stick to the time and you get a chance to talk to me again. And this is going to be one of many workshops, seminars that we're going to be doing, so you get a chance where we break it up a bit longer. So basically, my name is Vanessa Bobb. I've got 3 children, Shauna, Nathaniel and Michaela. Nathaniel is the middle child who's autistic and ADHD. He was diagnosed in 2008 with autism and ADHD, but before he was diagnosed, it was about 5.5 years old, it was mainly to do with his behaviour. people didn't believe that he was autistic because I worked in TV. I didn't get a chance to really spend a lot of time with him because the hours were quite long, and he stayed with my mum. So what you used to find was that when he would, in regards to sensory issues, which again I'm only known as through training, I found that all it was is that I'm going to do it from the black perspective, because at the end of the day, that's where I think my problem was made through the black community. If we, from the time of the little baby, you know, if someone plays loud music, what he used to do when I look back, he would shake his head like this. To me, that was just, I didn't understand. Just okay, that's basically just part of him growing up, because I never brought up a boy child. It was a girl child I had, was my first child. Through the journey, as he was growing older, breastfeeding, it was very hard to breastfeed him because he wouldn't latch on. So the latching was another thing where, again, I think it was everything to do with sensory, the latching on. Putting things over his head, he would shake like that. And I think what that was to do with, again, is it sensories? Light, dark, anything going over his face, there's like nothing on his face. Again, he didn't like clothes on. Again, I'm going to talk a bit more about it later. And what you used to find with him is, as I say, he grew up, it was just everything about him when I took him out is you always heard his name. He was non-verbal up to the age of 5.5. So before he was before he was non-verbal, you found that everything he did, his name would get called all the time. So if there was somebody getting in trouble, Nathaniel's name was the one that would get called. And to me, I felt that people were picking on him. But again, it was that thing of, I'm being overprotective, but I knew my child better than anybody. So how I dealt with it very quickly was that, but without telling anybody, I decided that how I was going to deal with it when he was in school. He was in a nursery school where what they were doing is, I found out years down the line what was happening is that they would actually put him in a corner. And again, because he was non-verbal, what I used to get when I get home, he's here and I'll say, because obviously he tells me and he's aware of it, and he actually said he's sorry, he would actually I'll get the kicking, the biting, running off, anywhere you went, didn't care where he was, he'd just run off. And I used to always forever holding his hand. People used to say, what's wrong with you? He's all right, he's fine. Or what they used to say is, can't you control your pick-me? Children, to those who don't know. And I used to constantly get into argument with a lot of friends and family because they just felt I didn't know how to control him. But as time went on, I think once after he got diagnosed, I think the main issue what I learned in the end was that because obviously with cultural differences where no one doesn't want their dirty living in public. So when you are with your family and friends or just outside in public, you just feel that people, you know what was wrong, you did your research, you get the diagnosis, but you feel you're on your own. And then as time went on, I think when I set up Second Voice in 2008, prior to that I had 4 tribunal appeals where academically my son did well, I think when he was in reception, but what I found what was wrong is that he was actually copying everything. So because of that, people just thought that he was intelligent. What it was, he remembered everything in order. So if you gave him his timetables, if it was a 2 to 12, everything was right. But when it was all mixed up, it was always 0 out of 12. Again, at the tribunal, what they picked up was that specialists, well, not professionals, I would say professionals, teachers, Senkos, they weren't looking at his behaviour, they're looking at the academic. So as much as he was getting all this attention, what was happening when he used to get into detention, which I find out again, they'll take him out of the class, and in his head, how he looked at it, it was the way to get out is I'll misbehave. But I wouldn't say it was misbehaving, I think it was a sensory thing. If somebody touched him, he would lash out. If somebody looked at him, he would lash out. And what I learned in the end was that through Mark, when I did the workshops in 2012, when I set up my first workshop, I think that's where I think it got to grips where I really understood what autism was. And I felt that when I started being on Facebook and socialising on Facebook, where I met Mark and Stephen, who were 2 guys that I met on a support group I set up 3 years ago with another mother in Sheffield, but she's not here at the moment. Her son is autistic, non-verbal. So where I had an autistic child, verbal, we saw the differences. And I felt in the end, because her son never had, again, I wasn't going to debate about this, but it's where her son, I had the MMR jab, her son never had it. Where her son had the classic autism, my son, high functioning. So what I always say to people is, I don't want to talk about the MMR, because at the end of the day, everybody's experiences is different. And I think when I get into the debate where people want to tell me that my son's behaviour is to do with my parenting skills, it's to do with The fact that because his dad was Jamaican, people said it was a language problem with the dad. I said no, it's got nothing to do with the dad. It's just the fact that he's autistic. But people don't like, I think people don't like to hear that word, and I think people need to understand that the way to move forward is to, if you know you've got the diagnosis, if you know that you're a professional, you know that you've got a child that is acting in a way that is different, where it becomes, you know the difference between what is a meltdown, where it's like a tantrum, but I call it extra tantrum, because the tantrum is totally different because it goes on and on and on. I was going to show a video, but so what I'll do is whoever's got their emails, I'll send it to you privately, because I think that way you actually see the before and the after, how things were with my son, and you see how he's developed over the years from when all my 4 tribe unions were successful, but the local authority still tried to keep it in mainstream. Once I got into an independent school, I think my whole life changed, because what I found now is I met people who had the same problems with me, but the children were in mainstream schools without a statement, which is obviously the government paid for extra funding. And to me, I feel that in the community on a whole, I think because with how the media see black boys in particular, is that straight away when they see a behaviour, they just see a bad child. And I think that's what I get when I go out. Everywhere I go, my son, now that he's verbal, he would tell me, Mummy, somebody said I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, I'm a freak. And I always try to explain to him that sometimes people don't understand. So what he needs to do is not use autism as an excuse for his behaviour, or for people to understand, it's just that he thinks a little bit differently. His thinking process is a little bit different in the sense where he can say the same thing over and over again. And sometimes I will get cross. I'm not, as I say to people, I still get it wrong, I still get frustrated, I still get angry, but then sometimes I look back, and then when I sit back, I have to see how far I've come by being around people who understand. And I think if you're with people who don't understand, it's like it's family and friends, it's going to be a very long road, because I've got a lot of mothers that I've met, obviously there's a few that are here that have had a different journey, and their children in their 30s, and both different stories. Actually it's about 3, and it's different stories. But most of the stories are, some are successful, most of that I've heard is horror stories, which, again, I said to people, I don't want my son to be a statistic. And that was my main reason why I set up a second voice to help all communities, not just the black community, it's all, because what I found out that every culture has got a different custom, a tradition. I know I was going to do the PowerPoint presentation, but the reason why I think I left it, because I said to my partner, is I don't think I could do the PowerPoint. I think it was too structured. I think I had to do it from the heart, and I think if you did come and speak to me, I think you'd get a better sense from me. I mean, if somebody's going to bring some information, a bio, so what I've done is, I've put everything in there that you can take away and read, but this is just a starter to a new thing with Nia, because it's something that we're going to try and do more on a regular basis, not just once a year, because I think with autism, I live it every day. I go out of my house, I still live it, because I still got to be very cautious with my son. When I'm at home, my daughters, again, they've got a different story. It's a battlefield all the time at home. But then, again, when you've got professionals come in the house, he's good as pie. So when they don't see the behaviour, they don't see autism. But I've got friends who've seen it, they've witnessed it. Juliet, one of the speakers, she witnessed it, and she said the same thing. You need help. But then when you've got professionals in social services, they say, what is wrong with him? And they try and compare your child to somebody else's child. I said, no, I don't know about your child, it's my child. Autism is unique in my way. So my way of doing this is just to help everybody, not just about me, it's joining all networks, like Nia said, it's about getting all connections together with all different organisations, not just each of us, because if I try and keep this to myself, I don't think I'm able to outreach to the community, so I'm trying to get to all of London, not just London. I've actually got connections in worldwide as well, in Jamaica, I've got Barbados, I've got America, I've got one in Italy, Pakistan, India, Poland, so it shows that I am outreaching, but I think that the only way I'm going to be able to do this, and Turkish, and Australia. So it shows that I am doing something right, but I think I wasn't able to do it with all the people that have been behind me. That is obviously Leash, who's not here. I would say Mark and Steve, because they were I would say pioneers, but they're the ones that were pushing me when I was doing autism around the world, and I think I would not have done it if they were what we call the agony uncles. They actually asked the questions. And what I try to say to people, autism doesn't see colour, and I think people need to understand that if they see speakers from different other nationalities, embrace what autism is. But if you've got a cultural problem, what I always try to explain to people is you have to have representation. Without representation, you're not going to connect to the communities, like the Muslim community. I've got somebody from the Muslim community who will speak for me, but at that time I said to her, let me do this, and then what we can do, we can outreach to different communities. And then that's where I've got Patricia, who I'm going to bring on next. And she obviously, again, I met her, I can't remember when I met her, but I think I was at the Autism show 2 years ago, and we've kept in contact via email. I went to one of her seminars, and what I said to her is that we need to start doing things more together as a community. We can't do it on our own. So where I've brought her in, she comes from the North London area, and what she's going to do is explain what her role is. Because as I said with autism, in regards to communication, without communication, you're going to lose a battle with the child. You have to know how to communicate. And I think my problem, I think with Nathan even now is, sometimes I have a communication breakdown because I can communicate, but when other people are around him, they always say, why does he do that? And then I go into lockdown mode myself, and I can get very defensive. So what I'll do is I'll bring on Patricia, who basically explain to you from her perspective of what autism is and what she does for her organisation. Thank you.